Archie, thanks for coming. It's good to see you. Kinga, this is Archie. Kinga's the producer. Let me tell you what we've been up to today. We're looking for evidence of Merlin the Wizard. Some modern research has suggested that the Arthurian legends actually originated in Scotland. Is there anything you can give us about Merlin, Merlin's tomb, or the whereabouts of Merlin's treasures around this area?
The best place for you to go to is a place called Stobokirk. After King Arthur had been killed, it is written down that Merlin was there.
That's local history?
I have never been there, but I've heard about it.
So you're saying Merlin was actually recorded as being down there south of...
They're supposed to have died there, Stobokirk.
Archie, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
If Merlin did in fact die at Stobo Church, he may be buried there. But I need to find evidence to support this claim. Find the grave, find the treasure. We're headed south to the church in Stobo. Merlin was a druid and a self-confessed sorcerer. Why would he be buried in a Christian church?
Well, what we've got from Archie is really, really interesting because nobody can quite pinpoint where he was last found. He appears in myths and whatnot, but nobody knows where. It's as close as we've been. All right, guys, so here we are at Stobo. Keep your eyes peeled for anything relating to Merlin or any of the stories we've heard about him so far. We're going to look for anything man-made in the outer landscape surrounding the church, anything that looks like an entranceway to a cave, because essentially that's where the treasures are going to be. But let's just look for Merlin at the moment and anything pointing us towards him. Let's go. Look at all these graves with all the symbols on them. You see them?
A lot of skull and crossbones.
Symbols of mortality.
We search the church grounds, but find no signs of a rock marking Merlin's grave or a nearby cave. We head inside to look for clues relating to Merlin's death that could take us one step closer to finding his stash of magical items. Look at this alcove over here. This is strange.
Look at this.
Merredin. It's the Welsh spelling of Merlin. And it shows him being baptized by St. Kentigern. It looks Victorian. But look at this. It's a stone baptism altar that's much older, at least 6th century. And it's the same one in the window. Does this mean Merlin was here at Stobo Church? If it does, his treasures could be close by. Our search for Merlin's treasures has led us to Stobo, Scotland. What we found here is staggering. A stained glass window showing Merlin getting baptized, and possibly the actual altar that may have been used to perform the baptism. The most famous sorcerer in the world converting to Christianity? I'm going to need some supporting evidence. So I'm meeting with Bob Milne, an expert in Druidic culture and the minister of this church, to get some answers.
We want to find out a little bit more about Merlin and his association to Stobo Church here.
Okay. The reason why the church was first built here in the 6th century was because it replaced an old Druidic temple that was stood on this little hillock. And that's where your friend Merlin comes in. And if you come over here, the legend was that Kentigern came down here, found Merlin, who, of course, at that time was a high priest of the Druidic pagan cult. This piece of stone here is reputed to be part of the altar stone where Merlin was baptized and took his first communion with Kentigern.
Merlin the Wizard taking communion.
Kentigern managed to convert Merlin to Christianity.
Don't hear that very often.
I've never heard that. So what does the story say about Merlin after he was baptized?
This legend has it that very shortly after his conversion and baptism, Merlin actually died.
So you're telling me he was converted to Christianity, and the legend ends that he died?
Legend that he died and he didn't get to go back to Glasgow with Kentigern, as was the original intention.
If Merlin died here, we've certainly found no evidence that he's buried on these grounds. There's got to be some kind of clue I'm missing.
You know, coming back to this window, Bob, with that word, Merlin, why do you think I'm looking at a non-Anglicised spelling of Merlin in a Scottish church?
There are other legends of Merlin and Arthur. And one of them revolves around a battle. Arthur was badly wounded. Merlin set sail south and returned back to France.
France?
Yeah.
One legend tells us Merlin died here. The next legend tells us he fled to France.
But how could he have both died and fled to France? For the answer, we need to look at the symbolism of being baptized.
What if the death of Merlin is allegorical for his conversion from being born again, a born-again Christian? I don't think he died here. I don't think he was buried here. I think it's all allegory. He's gone back to France.
But where in France would he have gone? I think the answer is written on the window. Merredin, the Welsh spelling of Merlin. There's only one place in 6th century France that spoke Welsh. The ancient Celtic nation of Brittany.
We need to go to Brittany.
I think so too. I think this is definitely the path less traveled, but it's a good one.
I agree.
I'm with you. Let's go to France.
If Merlin ended up in Brittany, we need to find his burial site. Find the grave, find the treasure. His conversion to Christianity may provide the missing piece to this puzzle.
What we're looking for is a Christianized version of Merlin. The research we've done has told us there's a church right here surrounded by Arthurian legends. We'll check it out when we see. Here we are, guys.
A pretty little French country church.
Isn't it?
St. Onan Church was built in the 16th to 17th century.
Wow, this is some building.
During Merlin's time, this area was a centre for Druidic culture and is steeped with connections to the great sorcerer. Look at this painting. It's a sorcerer standing over a table of treasure. In fact, this whole room is filled with imagery dating back to Merlin's time. The key is knowing how to interpret the symbology of the images.
Look at this. Most people would see Christian symbology, but it's a fusion of Celtic and Christian. Look at the 4 lions representing the 4 evangelists, but look right there in the center, the white stag.
According to legend, Merlin could transform into a white stag. The cross around his neck could represent the Christian Merlin.
But look further into these symbols.
Here's a body of water, a spring or a fountain. And next to it is a large stone, just like the legend. A large stone near a body of water marks Merlin's tomb.
So we've got the arrival of Merlin here as a Christian. And of course, if you read round the church and come to this painting here, on the right-hand side, you can see Merlin lying there, being seduced by Vivian. She's casting a spell in her arm right there. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see.
And right beside Merlin, you can see the fountain again. And the rock again that's depicted on the back wall.
Wow, there are a lot of stories in here, aren't there?
Yeah, but they're the same thing. They tell the same story. Merlin and the fountain. And of course, if you read across here to the right, into this painting here, in the bottom left, Merlin again, but he's depicted sleeping.
Why sleeping?
He's enchanted by Vivian. He's under the spell. Just read this church like a book. We've got the Christian Merlin arriving, fountain. Merlin being enchanted, fountain. This here tells me one clear thing.
What is that?
The fountain with the stone could be Merlin's tomb. Find the tomb, find the treasures. But how do we find the fountain? When I first looked at the image of the wizard by the treasure, something about it felt familiar, and now I know why. Look here. It's a church, but not just any church. It's the very church we're in now. And look at his arm. He's pointing the treasure northeast, towards the area containing the fountain. Is this a clue that the fountain and the treasure are northeast of the church? If I draw a straight line northeast of the church, we run directly into a site called Barrington Fountain.
We've got to go and find that fountain, because if Merlin and his treasures are buried anywhere, it's right there at that fountain. Guys, I've been looking at the maps here, and we've got like a half-hour hike. We might have to go 2 or 3 kilometers into this, essentially a wilderness. You know what? We're going to have to stick together because it's going to be so easy to get lost in woods like this. They go on for miles and miles. There's not much daylight left, so let's move on. Let's go.
We're headed northeast towards the Barrington Fountain, an ancient spring that has only recently been uncovered deep in this forest. The fountain is said to date from the time of Merlin. Legends of healing waters, magical rainstorms, and sacred ceremonies surround the archaic site. After heading several miles on a northeast axis from the church, we reach a clearing.
Guys, we found our fountain. Look at this.
We're in France looking for Merlin's magical treasures, which include a cloak of invisibility and a chariot capable of moving at lightning speed. The artifacts have been recorded in numerous texts rooted in the 6th century that state Merlin was buried with them. Using clues we uncovered in a nearby church, we tracked the location of these alleged magical items to an ancient fountain dating to the time of Merlin.
Look at this. This must be it. This is the Barrington Fountain for sure.
It's a near identical match to the fountain we saw at St. Denen's Church. It even has the same rock. This could be the stone marker of Merlin's grave we've been looking for.
It's like a chamber without a roof, isn't it? He's not in a cave. He's underneath, possibly the most holy fountain in the region, the Holy Well of Barrington. Can you see that? All the bubbles coming up. That might tell us that right here, underneath this water, is a chamber with air escaping through the stones. These rocks here could be the remains of the actual chamber. Let's have a look around. Can you see anything, Kinga? There's just no signs of an entrance to a chamber. It must be underneath this fountain here.
You think there's any way we can get to him?
My archaeology side wants to get a spade and start digging up. I want to block this, dam this off, and see what's under there.
But because the site's on national forestry land, it'll require a permit that could take years to get.
You think our Merlin could be down there?
If Merlin walked these landscapes and Merlin existed, this is precisely where it would have chosen. Overlooking his landscape, overlooking his culture, overlooking his ancestors, right here at the top of the enchanted forest. He could be buried right here with his treasures beneath our feet. Entombed in a glass coffin? Who knows? But this would be the perfect place for him to have been buried.
If we're to believe the legend, Merlin could still be there, trapped in a cave waiting for Arthur's return to the throne, when he would once again need his magical treasures. We could very well have found Merlin's final resting place. Whether we did or not, it's almost better to let it lie and continue to believe that there's still a little magic left in the world.